In a few minutes, you'll experience one of the most disturbing crimes in modern American history. Two 12-year-old girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier, lured their friend Payton Leutner into a wooded park and stabbed her 19 times to prove that a fictional internet character called Slender Man was real. All three children were 12 years old. You will witness this crime from three perspectives. First, as a 12-year-old girl whose best friends lure her into the woods. Then as the detectives who discovered that internet folklore had become a deadly delusion. And finally, as a psychologist trying to understand how children can believe a monster so completely that they're willing to kill for it. By the end, you'll ask yourself, would you have seen the warning signs? And could you tell the difference between fantasy and reality when you were 12? This case will test your understanding of friendship, your ability to recognize danger in familiar faces, and your grasp on the line between imagination and delusion. Most importantly, it will ask, at what age do we become responsible for distinguishing between stories and reality? And what happens when that line disappears completely? The evidence police found didn't make sense at first. The girls had planned this for months, practicing stabbing motions on fruit, using code words like cracker for knife and camping trip for murder. But they weren't calculating psychopaths. They were children who believed in a monster. The question becomes, is that an explanation or an excuse? Before we open this case file, hit like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps uncover more stories buried in the dark. Now, where were we? It's Friday night, May 30th, 2014. You're at your best friend Morgan's house for a sleepover, a birthday celebration. You've known Morgan since 4th grade, when you noticed her sitting alone at lunch. You didn't like seeing anyone without friends, so you sat down. You've been inseparable ever since. Tonight feels normal. You go to a local roller skating rink before returning to Morgan's house. You're 12 years old. 7th grade is almost over. Summer is coming. Life feels manageable, predictable, safe. There's also Anissa at the sleepover, Morgan's other friend. You don't particularly like Anissa. She's always cruel to you, and you feel like she's jealous that Morgan is friends with both of you. But you hang out with her anyway, because Morgan really loves her as a friend. That's what good friends do, right? They tolerate the people their best friends care about. You don't know this yet, but Morgan and Anissa have been planning something for 6 months. And tonight is the night they've chosen. You describe yourself as hopeful and positive before this night. You try to see the good in people. It's one of your defining characteristics. This fundamental belief that everyone deserves kindness, that everyone deserves at least one friend. Your mother describes you as such an empathetic kid who recognized that Morgan maybe wasn't the healthiest friendship to have. But if you weren't her friend, she wouldn't have any other friends. So you stayed, because abandoning someone who struggled to connect with others felt cruel. You're in 6th grade at Horning Middle School. You have plans, small, ordinary 12-year-old plans. Finish the school year. Enjoy summer break. Maybe go to the mall with friends. Watch movies. The kind of future that feels infinite when you're 12. Morgan talks a lot about Slender Man, this internet horror character that terrifies you. She's constantly talking about him, and it scares you. But you brush it off as just Morgan being Morgan, interested in creepy stuff online. Lots of kids your age are into horror stories. It doesn't mean anything, right? Saturday morning, May 31st. You wake up in Morgan's house. The three of you play dress-up and eat breakfast. Everything seems normal, the kind of morning after sleepover routine you've done dozens of times. Morgan suggests going to the park. She packs a bag with food and some pictures. You find it somewhat unusual just to go to the park, but you don't question it too deeply. Morgan can be quirky. That's part of who she is. At the park, you play for a while. Then Morgan secretly shows Anissa the knife she's taken from her kitchen. You don't see this. You're oblivious. You trust these girls completely. The three of you go into the bathroom. Anissa strikes your head, causing it to hit the wall. It's startling, confusing. What was that about? But before you can fully process it, Morgan suggests going into a bathroom stall to look at some vandalism. When all three of you are in the stall, Morgan locks the door. Something feels wrong. Your body knows before your conscious mind does. This isn't playful. This isn't a game. But nothing happens. Not yet. They unlock the door. You leave the bathroom. Maybe you imagine the tension. Morgan and Anissa suggest playing hide-and-seek in the wooded area of the park. It's heavily wooded, the kind of place that feels adventurous when you're 12. Exploring. Testing boundaries. Feeling independent. Anissa tells you to hide first while Morgan counts. You and Anissa hide together. You're walking deeper into the woods. The trees are thick here. Dense. The sounds of the park, other kids playing, parents calling, fade behind you. You're thinking about normal 12-year-old things. How much longer until you can go home? Whether your mom will pick you up soon. That essay due next week for school. Whether you'll hang out with these friends again soon. Your phone battery is dying. You'll charge it when you get home. You don't realize you're being led to a specific spot. A spot they've chosen. A spot where no one will see. Where no one will hear. Anissa tells you to lie down and cover yourself with sticks and leaves, supposedly to hide better during hide-and-seek. It's strange, but you're 12. Your friends are asking you to do something. It's part of the game. You lie down. Most 12-year-olds wouldn't question it. You're with your best friend. You trust her. The idea that she might hurt you is unthinkable. You lie down. You're vulnerable now. Completely. Anissa pushes you down. Anissa sits on you. Suddenly you can't move. Panic floods your system. What's happening? Anissa tells Morgan, do it now, and go ballistic, go crazy. And then you see the knife. In Morgan's hand. Your best friend. The girl you befriended in 4th grade because she was alone. Morgan tackles you and begins stabbing. 19 times. In your arms, legs, and torso. 2 wounds pierce major organs. 1 stab wound misses a major artery near your heart by less than a millimeter. Another goes through your diaphragm, cutting into your liver and stomach. You try to plead for your life. You ask, why are you doing this? They don't answer. Morgan just keeps stabbing. She stabs you quickly, stabby, stab, stab, targeting vital areas. Your body goes into survival mode. You're conscious, but your brain is working so hard to keep you alive that vision becomes less important. Everything narrows to one singular focus. Stay alive. You're alone in the woods. 19 stab wounds. Blood everywhere. Your body is in shock. You can't focus on much because your body is working so hard to keep itself alive. Here's what most people don't understand about severe trauma. Your brain makes choices for you. It shuts down non-essential functions. Your vision fades in and out because vision isn't really a priority right now. Your conscious mind takes a back seat to pure survival instinct. You know, somehow, through the fog of shock, that if you stay here, you die. No one is coming to help you. Your friends aren't getting help. They left you to die. You get up. You grab trees for support. Every movement is agony. Your body is screaming at you to lie still, to conserve energy. But you move anyway. You crawl and drag yourself approximately 60 feet through the woods to a bike path, to a patch of grass where you can lie down in the open. 60 feet doesn't sound like much. But when you're 12 years old with 19 stab wounds, it's an impossible distance. You do it anyway. A passing cyclist finds you lying on the bike path at the end of Big Bend Road and calls 911. You're barely conscious. Later reports will say that police and paramedics were stunned you were still conscious at all. The cyclist stays with you. Emergency services arrive. Your mother arrives at the hospital. You see her as nurses count your wounds. Your mother tells you, you're going to be okay. It's going to be fine, but she can see that you're covered. Your arms, your legs, your abdomen, covered in stab wounds. Surgeons operate for 6 hours to repair the damage. Dr. John Kellerman, who operated on you, later says, if the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived. You survive. Physically, at least. The emotional survival, that will take years. While you're in surgery, police are trying to understand what happened. Hours later, Morgan and Anissa are found by police sitting in grass near the interstate. When Lieutenant Paul Renkas locates Morgan Geyser and asks if she has anything sharp, she tells him there's a knife in her purse in the nearby tree line. He notices blood on her clothes. When he asks if she's injured, she says she's not. When he asks where the blood came from, she tells him she was best friends with the victim. Was past tense. Later, at the juvenile detention center, when asked if she planned to end her life, Morgan responds, "Not mine. No, not mine." She indicates she was referring to her best friend, but adds, "Well, she was my best friend. She hates me now, but it had to be done. It had to be done." That phrase will haunt this investigation because it suggests something detectives weren't prepared for. These 12-year-old girls genuinely believed murder was necessary. Not impulsive, not rage-driven. Necessary. In separate interrogations, both girls confess immediately, but their reasoning is what stops detectives cold. Anissa tells Detective Michelle Trussoni about a fictional internet character named Slender Man, and that Morgan had told her they needed to become proxies of Slender Man by killing the victim. Although Anissa struggled with the decision to kill, she really wanted to prove the skeptics wrong and prove herself worthy of Slender Man. They had planned to attack during the night, to have Anissa wake up around 2 a.m., put duct tape over your mouth, and stab you in the neck so you would bleed out. They decided against the nighttime attack, but agreed in the morning they would kill you at the park, initially planning to do it in a bathroom stall because the blood would drain down into the floor drain, and they could close the door to the stall. Nobody would know you were in there. This isn't impulsive violence. This is methodical planning by 12-year-old children who believe they were appeasing a fictional monster. Pause here. Think about what you've heard so far. Two 12-year-old girls believed, completely, genuinely believed, that a fictional internet character was real. So real that they planned a murder for months. Practiced stabbing motions. Used code words. Chose the location carefully. The question isn't just, how did they believe this? The question is, at 12 years old, could you have told the difference between an internet horror story and reality? If your best friend told you Slender Man was real, would you have believed them? Or would you have recognized the delusion? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments, because this case is about to get more complicated. The investigation. It's May 31st, 2014, early afternoon. You're Detective Michelle Trussoni, Waukesha Police Department. You've been called to a scene that doesn't make sense. A 12-year-old girl nearly died. Two 12-year-old girls are in custody. They've confessed, but their motive, their stated reason for attempted murder, is something you've never encountered in your career. They did it for Slender Man. You've been a detective for years. You've seen domestic violence, gang violence, crimes of passion, crimes of calculation. But you've never seen children commit near murder for a fictional internet character. Your training didn't prepare you for this. The pressure is immediate. The media is circling. The community is terrified. Parents across Waukesha are asking the same question. Are our children safe? And the more disturbing question underneath, could my child have done this? You start gathering evidence. What you find makes this case even more unsettling. Anissa Weier's school-issued iPad shows browser history including violent videos and instructional content on unconventional killing methods, including a tutorial involving a lollipop as a weapon. The device also shows exposure to creepypasta wikis starting in December 2013, where she encountered Slender Man narratives and shared them with Morgan. Morgan Geyser's home computer shows repeated visits to Slender Man fan content, including creepypasta stories depicting sacrifices and murders as means to become proxies or servants of the fictional entity. You discover they used code words, cracker for knife, camping trip for the woods where they believed Slender Man resided. In February 2014, they chose May 31st as the date for the attack. For months of planning. At ages 12, the girls selected Payton as the victim specifically because she wouldn't suspect it. They practiced stabbing motions on fruit at home. This isn't spontaneous childhood violence. This is premeditated, calculated, rehearsed. You're facing a decision that will define this case. How do you charge two 12-year-old girls who genuinely believe they were killing for a monster? Do you charge them as adults for attempted first-degree intentional homicide? Keep them in juvenile court where they could be released at 18? Argue for mental health intervention over prosecution? This isn't theoretical. This decision determines whether these girls spend a few years in juvenile detention or decades in adult facilities. Your instinct says this was planned. They knew it was wrong. They hid the knife. They used code words. They lied to parents. That shows consciousness of guilt. But the interrogation footage shows something else. Morgan Geyser displaying what investigators describe as no empathy, talking about hallucinations, mentioning imaginary figures. Anissa showing guilt, but insisting the attack was necessary. What would you choose? Psychological evaluations reveal that Morgan Geyser was suffering from early-onset schizophrenia, an extraordinarily rare diagnosis for such a young girl. Her father also suffers from schizophrenia and had been hospitalized at least 4 times as a teenager for mental illness. Morgan's mother, Angie Geyser, explains that during the extensive evaluation, Morgan received this diagnosis. She says, "When they told us what had happened and that she had done it because she believes Slender Man is real, that's where my mind went, is that she must be sick." Dr. Melissa Westendorf, one of the court-appointed forensic psychologists, testifies that Morgan's mother said she had noticed odd behaviors, like Morgan's reaction to Bambi's mother dying in the Disney film. After Bambi's mother was shot, Morgan just said, "Run, Bambi, run," and had no reaction whatsoever to the mother dying, so it was just kind of the opposite reaction they'd been expecting. But here's where your investigation gets complicated. Angie Geyser says, "I don't think that there were any glaring, obvious clues that she was ill. She was just always such a gentle and kind person." Dr. Westendorf explains, "It can go unnoticed, especially with delusions. Delusions can remain compartmentalized for people. So unless you're talking about the delusion, you may not know that it exists." Dr. Westendorf diagnoses Anissa with a shared psychotic disorder, explaining that Morgan's schizophrenia coupled with both girls' delusions about Slender Man created a perfect storm. Once you find this character on the internet, you can read all these stories that look real. Shared psychotic disorder, also called folie à deux, occurs when a delusional person influences another person to adopt the same delusions. Morgan genuinely believed Slender Man was real due to her schizophrenia. Anissa, spending enormous amounts of time with Morgan, absorbed and reinforced that belief. For over a year in jail before treatment, Morgan remained untreated and continued to believe she could communicate with Slender Man and Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter series. Angie Geyser says she saw a dramatic change in her daughter after she was able to get mental health help and medication. You're investigating an attempted murder where the perpetrators were clinically delusional. The question becomes, can 12-year-olds with severe mental illness be held criminally responsible for actions they genuinely believed were necessary to prevent harm? The legal battle centers on one question: adult court or juvenile court? Prosecutors argue these girls should be tried as adults because the extensive planning, selection of the victim, practicing stabbing motions, and post-attack evasion demonstrate calculated intent and recognition of criminality. Defense attorneys argue that 12-year-olds with severe mental illness lack the capacity for adult criminal responsibility. Ultimately, both are charged as adults, but both plead not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. In 2017, Weier and Geyser were both found not guilty by mental disease or defect and committed to mental health institutions. Geyser pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted intentional homicide in 2017, but was found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. In February 2018, Geyser was sentenced to 40 years in a psychiatric hospital. Weier received 25 years. To understand this case, you need to understand what Slender Man is and how it spread. On June 10, 2009, forum user Eric Knudsen, using the pseudonym Victor Surge, created the character on the Something Awful internet forum during a Photoshop contest to create paranormal images. He posted 2 black and white images of children with a tall, thin, spectral figure wearing a black suit added to the background. The Slender Man quickly went viral. Wikipedia stories, fan art, video games, and an entire mythology evolved. Slender Man is depicted as stalking, abducting, or traumatizing people, particularly children. By 2014, although nearly all users understood that Slender Man was not real, they suspended that disbelief to become more engrossed in the stories. This ambiguity blurred the lines between legend and reality. For 2 12-year-old girls, one with undiagnosed schizophrenia, one susceptible to shared delusion, that blurred line became non-existent. Slender Man wasn't a story. He was real, and he required a sacrifice. The case is resolved legally, but morally, psychologically, that resolution is far more complicated. In 2021, Anissa Weier was released under strict conditions, including GPS monitoring and no contact with Payton until 2039. In January 2025, a judge ordered Morgan Geyser's release from the Winnebago Mental Health Institute after 3 medical experts testified she had made considerable progress and no longer posed a danger. But on November 22, 2025, just months after her release, Morgan Geyser cut off her Department of Corrections monitoring bracelet and fled her group home. She was captured in Posen, Illinois the following day. The investigation you conducted years ago just became active again. The question you thought was resolved, is she stable? Is she safe to release? Has a new, troubling answer. So now you know what happened. 2 12-year-old girls with severe mental illness attempted to murder their friend to appease a fictional internet character. The victims survived through extraordinary will. The perpetrators were committed to psychiatric institutions. One was released and remained stable. The other was released and immediately fled. But knowing what happened isn't the same as understanding why. And understanding why is the only thing that might prevent something like this from happening again. What was going on in these girls' minds? What does this case teach us about childhood, mental illness, the internet, and the line between fantasy and reality? And most importantly, what could have been done differently? Morgan Geyser was diagnosed with early-onset childhood schizophrenia in October 2014, a diagnosis made after her arrest. Schizophrenia is rare in children. Early-onset schizophrenia is extraordinarily rare, affecting perhaps 1 in 40,000 children. Morgan had been experiencing symptoms before the attack: auditory and visual hallucinations, seeing ghosts, colors melting down walls, interactions with imaginary entities she named Maggie and Seth. But as her mother explains, Morgan made a conscious effort to hide it because a lot of her hallucinations were friends to her, and she didn't want to lose those friends. Think about that. A 12-year-old girl with undiagnosed schizophrenia is experiencing hallucinations, terrifying, isolating experiences, and she hides them because the hallucinations are the only friends she has that feel completely safe and accepting. Then she discovers Slender Man online. A tall, faceless figure. Powerful, otherworldly, demanding. And suddenly her private hallucinations have a name. A purpose. A community of other people who believe, too. For a child with schizophrenia trying to make sense of her fracturing perception of reality, Slender Man offered a framework. He explained the unexplainable. He gave her delusion structure. After receiving treatment and medication, Morgan's mother saw a dramatic change. With treatment, Morgan could recognize that Slender Man wasn't real. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. Stendorf diagnosed Anissa with shared psychotic disorder, a rare condition where a delusional person influences another person to adopt the same delusions. Anissa didn't have schizophrenia, but she spent enormous amounts of time with Morgan, lived in the same apartment building, rode the bus together, consumed the same online content. Anissa admitted she struggled with the decision to kill, but proceeded because she really wanted to prove the skeptics wrong and prove herself worthy of Slender Man. This is what makes shared psychotic disorder so dangerous. The secondary person, Anissa, isn't experiencing primary delusions. She's being convinced by someone she trusts and cares about. And at 12 years old, the ability to critically evaluate whether your best friend is delusional or telling the truth is still developing. Add in the internet, where thousands of stories, images, and evidence of Slender Man exist, and suddenly the delusion has external validation. It's not just Morgan saying Slender Man is real. It's hundreds of websites, thousands of users, fan art, video games. The line between collaborative fiction and actual belief becomes invisible. Now let's talk about Payton. Because the question, could you have survived, isn't just about physical survival. It's about the psychological factors that determined whether she lived or died. Payton described herself as hopeful and positive, someone who tried to see the good in people. She befriended Morgan in 4th grade specifically because Morgan was alone, because Payton thought everyone deserved at least one friend. That empathy, that fundamental kindness, is what made her vulnerable. She ignored warning signs about the friendship because abandoning someone who struggled socially felt cruel. She tolerated Anissa's cruelty because Morgan cared about Anissa. She went into the woods without suspicion because she trusted her best friend completely. These aren't mistakes. These are the actions of a decent human being. But in this specific situation, they created vulnerability. After the attack, Payton made a choice that saved her life. She crawled 60 feet through the woods while bleeding from 19 stab wounds to reach a visible location where someone could find her. That's not luck. That's a 12-year-old girl choosing life over death when death would have been so much easier. Years later, Payton told ABC News, "I've come to accept all of the scars that I have. It's just a part of me. I don't think much of them. They will probably go away and fade eventually. The physical scars might fade. The psychological ones, the knowledge that your best friend tried to murder you because of an internet story, those don't fade. They transform." Payton says the hardest part is the betrayal of friendship. "I thought I'd really found friends who truly understood me." The ultimate lesson of the Slender Man case isn't about monsters online or broken childhoods or failed mental health systems, though it's about all of those things. It's about the line between story and reality, and how easily that line can dissolve for minds that aren't equipped to maintain it. We live in a world where collaborative fiction is everywhere, where communities build elaborate mythologies together, where the line between let's pretend and this is real is maintained by social agreement, not objective truth. For most of us, that's fine. We can play in fictional worlds and return to reality. But for some minds, young minds, sick minds, vulnerable minds, that line doesn't exist. The story becomes real. The monster becomes real. The murder becomes necessary. And 3 families are destroyed by something that never existed, except in the minds of 2 12-year-old girls who made it real. We love having you here. If you want to join our growing community, make sure you subscribe right now. If you have friends who would enjoy this content, please share this video with them. And hey, let us know what you thought in the comments below. We read every single one.